thank you very much for giving me your time to talk about the updates from the education department. And I think what be very valuable if you can just briefly introduce yourself, who you are, what you do for My First Bitcoin. So people who are new and don't know what My First Bitcoin is doing, who you are, that they get a little bit of context before we dive actually into the updates that we are going to launch on Thursday. Maybe Pablo, you want to kick it off?
Yeah, sure. So, hey everyone, my name is Pablo. I work here at My First Bitcoin as the Bitcoin educational developer, designer. Basically what my job is to do is to bring the best educational content, resources, tools, materials to the network. So I'm looking at everything that's been created previous to me arriving here, which was only recently. I've been here for a few months now. So just updating everything, bringing everything up to scratch with an ever-growing Bitcoin industry, community, network, and also thinking of other ways that we can innovate within education. And we want to bring high-quality education to the world, and our focus is Bitcoin education. So this gives me an amazing field of scope to be able to work things out and design with fun and precision and with intention to help people across the world. So my role is pretty much just designing things and pushing them out.
Well, thank you very much. And as far as I understood, you are currently sitting in a cafe in El Salvador. That's correct?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I'm just in El Salvador right now in a Bitcoin accepting coffee shop just before going to an AI conference. So this is my life right now.
Be worse. So Gabe, do you also want to introduce yourself very quickly?
Yeah, thanks, Patrick. Thanks for the time and the opportunity. So I'm Gabe. I have the title within the organization of Digital Content Lead. Through time and as we move so quickly in the organization, the titles and roles have blurred to a point where we're all working together to get you the best Bitcoin education available in the world. So yeah, right now I'm focusing on working with Pablo and the education team to bring these resources online, whether that be through video, through online sessions, through PDFs, whatever I can do to bring them in a digital format. That's my role. I'm currently sitting in Paraguay. Very cool Bitcoin community here as well. And I think as Bitcoiners, that is what our goal is just to find each other in the world.
What excites me the most is I feel like Bitcoin is known now by a lot of people across the world. And I feel people have had the opportunity, if they really wanted to learn about Bitcoin. And the diploma was like a really large part of that at My First Bitcoin, and the movement with, legal tender adoption in El Salvador and circular economies popping up across the world. It was very much like a groundswell to learn about Bitcoin education for the people who were passionate about it, for the people who are willing to step outside of their comfort zone. So now the biggest challenge is how do we bring that to the next layer of students? They might not be as passionate or as motivated as learners that we've seen over the last few years, but that's our challenge, is to capture curiosity. We know that the case for Bitcoin is stronger and stronger as time goes by in the times that we're living in. So it's good to see that Bitcoin is as strong as ever. And now we get to address ourselves to a whole new global type of learner who's maybe not got the same amount of time that is needed for the Bitcoin diploma, maybe not in El Salvador, maybe doesn't know a circular community. It's all about outreach, essentially. So like, how do we take our message and deliver our platform and give access to the community to these people? So it's basically broadening out. We've gone from like very precise education in the right schools with the right people, with the right volunteers, with the right message. And now we got to design really innovatively, because we got to compete with everything else that's trying to capture your attention that maybe doesn't help you out as much as taking time to learn about Bitcoin would do. So I'm excited about that. How do we capture attention in the attention economy?
We are here today to actually speak about the updates of the education department, what you guys were working on together with your colleagues. So what I understood is we have an intro course that is updated and translated into 40 languages now. We have an update of the Bitcoin diploma where we can discuss infrastructure and also the translations. We have an update on the ETP, the Educator Training Program, and maybe we talk about like where to book the ETP. People might be interested in that. And then there is a huge topic for Pablo, which is Bitcoin for Juniors. And if that is a great overview, maybe you can just start with the intro course, explain it for like a 2 sentences. Maybe you can explain it in a better way than I did it, what the intro course is and what the update is.
Yeah, maybe I can jump in here, Pablo. So if you don't know what the Introduction to Bitcoin course from My First Bitcoin this is your first, basically your gateway into Bitcoin education. What the goal of this intro course is to give you a small overview of what the history of money is, what the problem is with our current financial system, and why Bitcoin could be that solution to all of these problems that we're all dealing with around the world. Now, it's not going to answer absolutely every question. That is what the Bitcoin diploma is for. But one of the biggest updates for this current release with the intro course is that we now have a PDF version. So previously, we only had PDF versions for our main courses like the Bitcoin diploma, Bitcoin for Organizations, and others. But now we have a full PDF version for the Introduction to Bitcoin course, and it's translated into multiple languages, as Patrick mentioned, 40 languages for everybody around the world. And we're going to keep scaling that as time goes on. But that's a big update with the intro course. I know that was more than 2 sentences, but I think I captured it or summarized it pretty well.
Okay, cool. So the next step would be another update about the Bitcoin diploma. Can you help people to understand that? You said the intro course is, like it said, the introduction. The diploma has a little bit more depth. And what exactly is the update on that?
I'll jump in for that one, I think. Okay, so after what Gabe said about intro is the gateway to the diploma. Diploma is still our flagship program, and it's still very much the center of our attention. But one of the things we've realized in the past few years is scaling the diploma successfully has always been a challenge. And it's depended very much on the community who've passionately translated word by words, proofreads, and basically done this on a peer base, which has been amazing. However, it's a heavy lift. So nowadays in 2026, everybody's talking obviously about the power of artificial intelligence and how we can use it. And as we've seen in the past few months, years, the first way to use it is through translation. So it totally made sense to us to readapt the Bitcoin diploma to be translation friendly via machine learning as a first draft. Obviously, we keep humans in the loop. That's super important to us. But we want to get first drafts in as many languages as possible to be able to scale the diploma. So that's the biggest update that we've done on the diploma this year. But behind the scenes, it's been a bit more technical than that. It's involved basically taking what was the previous diploma and entering it into a new framework of tools and publication softwares. We've been using things like Sanity to be able to auto-translate what is an English version 1 of the diploma for 2026. So basically, this is super important because we can even translate into languages where we don't yet have Bitcoin nodes, node network members or participants. So we've moved this into some really key languages as well, like Hindi, also available in Mandarin, I believe, which have a huge amount of people speaking this language. So our reach has just scaled exponentially by making this move. One of the drawbacks is we need to make the diploma even more stable for translation. So things like images and graphics are a little bit tricky. So you'll see that the brand new diploma is a bit more black and white. It's a bit more text-based. But we're super happy that we're able to grow the reach and readership of the diploma so that more people can learn and more people can teach the diploma to their students.
So Gabe, could you give some insight? We also updated the ETP, the Educators Training Program. What's the update on that? And what's the ETP in 2 sentences, and what is the update?
Yeah, so huge update. I would argue that it's probably our biggest update to a course in the past year here with the Educators Training Program. But to give you a brief introduction, once you've gone through the intro course, the Bitcoin diploma, and now you are focused on either becoming a part of your existing Bitcoin community, or you want to start your own Bitcoin community where you are, well, we want to empower you with the tools and the resources and the knowledge and the skills to be that best Bitcoin educator that you can be for your community. So that's what the goal of the ETP is a 3-day live online session to help educators use the tools and resources to create interactive classes for the people that they want to educate and introduce to Bitcoin. The reason I say it's the biggest update to the courses that we have available is because we've gone from a self-paced format, which was only video-based, to now a live and interactive format. So now we have online calls. We keep the groups to 8 to 10 people so that we can keep them very intimate and so that people have the time to share and get to know each other. It's a really, in my opinion, one of the highest value courses that we have at My First Bitcoin.
Very cool. And I also think there is, if I'm not mistaken, an in-between thing that is called the Bitcoin Diploma Educator Guide. This is a separate thing, right? So for people who are not at My First Bitcoin, can you explain what's the distinction of that guide?
Yeah, sure. I can jump in with that one because that was kind of my my contribution to one of the programs as well, was the Educator Guides. As a previous teacher, like, I know that when you go into a classroom, usually most textbooks have two formats. You'll have a student book and a teacher book. And basically the teacher book is a play-by-play script of how to run the student guide. So we've seen in the past that the diploma has been very much focused on adult education. So adults need a bit less prompting to move through the diploma. And the teacher can have the student guide as well, and you can get that together with your teacher, educator, and the students together. But what I'd like to do to be able to lighten the load on the students is to remove some of the instructional information from the diploma and hand that over to the educator to make them feel a bit more empowered, a bit more in control. And also they can kind of guide the class with their own flavor, their own experiences, and kind of improvise a bit more, which will make it a bit more of a personal experience. So we're trying to build up the educator's guide. Previously, it was a lesson plan guide, and we've basically implanted this into this new framework that we're using with Sanity and the artificial intelligence translations, so that every copy of the diploma will be followed by an educator guide as well. So if somebody's out there looking at the diploma for the first time saying, I didn't study the diploma, but I want to teach it, the educator guide will give you a real quick start way of how to successfully teach the diploma. So we're going to build this out as well with lots more activities and lots more more adaptability, because we want to scale not just in terms of the reach of the diploma, but the ways in which people arrive at successful education results for their students. Because we realize that teaching Bitcoin across the world is not a step-by-step recipe. It's more like a dance. It's an interaction. It's a conversation. It's based around all of these things that are really dependent on our educators. So we just kind of want to give somebody a basic play-by-play of how we think it could be carried out, but we also want to give them plenty of room to maneuver so they can inject themselves, their story, their culture, their personal experiences into the education to make it stick and make it resonate with their students as well. So it's essentially like a tool that we hand over to educators to make them feel a bit more comfortable when teaching the diploma.
Okay, and would you say, if I want to become an educator, what's the first step? Would I go through the ETP, then start teaching, and then get the guide? Or is it the other way around? How would you explain it?
It's a good question, and there's no direct answer. It really depends on how confident you feel. I know that a lot of people who have teaching experience in the past already have a classroom presence, already maybe feel confident explaining things, responding to questions, handling objections. If that's you, then by all means go ahead, take the educator's guide, take the diploma, find some students and have fun. But if you're in the second camp, which is a bit lacking in confidence, maybe lacking in experience, not too sure how to carry out the entire thing, even from a logistical point of view in terms of planning, resources, what it looks like, then for you people, I'd recommend join us at an ETP as soon as possible. Educators like myself, like Gabe, like Raina, a lot of people here at the My First Bitcoin team will be leading you through a 3-day, 6-hour course, which will give blow by blow all of the aspects of what it takes to be a successful educator. And you'll be surprised that it's not out of your reach. It's totally something that you can achieve. And we'll give you the tools, the resources, some confidence, some pointers on how to teach, and essentially just a boost of confidence, which will get you up to running your first cohort. So it really depends on yourself. If you think you got this, go ahead. Let us know how it goes. But if you need a bit of a boost, the ETP is for you.
That's a pretty good summary to help people understand where to start. So my question is, you just mentioned you started live classes. So the next question that comes to my mind is like, how can I book the live session? It's like, who should I contact? Where can I get the contact? Where is the class? When?
Yeah. So right now, to make it as accessible as possible to most places around the world, what we've done is created an open registration, and it's just a Google form that you can fill out and select the time zone or the time slot that works best for you. So we have 3 time slots available. We've done it in in an early morning, and then an afternoon, and then an evening format. But again, it depends on your time zone. Anybody can sign up. The only requirement is that you have had to have completed the Bitcoin diploma. Whether you have read it yourself, you've done it self-paced through our online school, or you were part of a Bitcoin education node in the My First Bitcoin network, and you had someone instruct you through the Bitcoin diploma, and you have a certificate from that node. So that is the basic requirement, because we're not going to be recapping the Bitcoin diploma through the ETP. You should already know what it covers, and we're here to help boost your confidence so that you can go into a classroom, whether that be online or in person, and be ready as an educator. So you can find that link through our website in the Teach tab, if I'm not mistaken, and just click Educator Training Program, and it'll link you directly to the forum. I'll get the registration, and we'll let you know as soon as a cohort is available in your time slot.
Okay, amazing. I think what we'll also do, we will link it like directly below the video so people can find it, the registration form. I think that might be a good idea. And before we come to something like an entire like new program, I have a question in between. We also have a program, Bitcoin for Organizations. As far as I understood, this is a minor update. As far as I understood, it is migrated to our new infrastructure for translations, and there is no content update, but now we are also able to provide it very soon in multiple languages. Can you just give like a brief information? What is Bitcoin for Organizations and what's the update?
Yeah, so I'll start off with the update first of all. It's following very much same suit as the educator's guide and mainly the diploma as well. On the back end, you guys don't see this, but on the back end, everything's been migrated from what was essentially things like Google Docs and PDFs and Canva over to a more artificial intelligence friendly harness and work structure. So we get all of the advantages of translations. So all of the programs are available in a lot of languages. Now, to your second point, what is Bitcoin for Organizations? It's a layer 2 of the diploma essentially. And it is focused at just about that. It's focused about organizations who need much more technical knowledge on how to benefit from the advantages of Bitcoin, such as running operations. It's more operational, to be honest. It focuses on things like scalability, like treasury, like how to handle running a business using Bitcoin, which, as we've seen in the past few years, has been more and more part of the conversation. Bitcoin treasury companies, any business owners out there, any entrepreneurs, anybody wanting to pivot their business onto Bitcoin or even start a business on Bitcoin, Bitcoin for Organizations is the program for you. I would recommend again that if you haven't read the diploma, first give the diploma a read. If Bitcoin's a whole new subject to you, start with the foundations of what Bitcoin is and what problem does it solve. But then if you've got some daily issues with bookkeeping, if you want to know how to run a node, if you want to know how your business can operate using Bitcoin, then check out Bitcoin for Organizations.
So this is an entirely new program called Bitcoin for Juniors. And I think a lot of people are waiting for it. And I think it's an amazing idea from everything I know. Maybe, I guess you're the best person to summarize what it is. So it's not an update, it's actually a launch. Right?
Yeah, exactly. We're really excited to bring a new program out, and everything that comes with it is really energetic and very positive. Creating an educational program for children is like a passion of mine. It's something that's really close to my heart, and I'm really happy that we're able to talk about it now in the wild and deliver it very shortly to the people who've been waiting a long time for it. So I'm not sure exactly where to start. Maybe start with how it came about. It was originally the project that brought me over here to working with My First Bitcoin. I was working on Bitcoin for Juniors, in fact, as a contract, when I was approached by John, the founder, and Quentin, our general manager, who was saying that it was kind of like a dream to be able to offer Bitcoin education of quality to younger audiences, and also with a type of care and a kind of nuance that's necessary to bring about complex subjects in an easy, fun, and accessible way. So that was kind of like the big vision, but also from a practical point of view, we were seeing that the diploma was being taught in secondary schools, and we kind of gauged that the lowest level of participation, depending on student talent and reading ages and things like this and experience, but was about maybe younger than 16, younger than 15, and especially younger than 14. The diploma wasn't super relevant to younger audiences. So we started just by doing backwards design. We said, okay, so if we want to make the diploma more accessible to younger ages, what do we need to do? And instead of going back into the teen group, I really wanted to start with what we call juniors. First question might be, how old are juniors? We've designed this for around students of 8 to 12 years old. So like with an okay reading level, happy to participate, but not a lot of experience with money per se. You know, they might not own money, they might not have accounts, they maybe don't even have cell phones. And this was part of the design criteria as well, that Bitcoin for Juniors doesn't require what the diploma requires. The requirements for Bitcoin for Juniors are very low. And that's been super fun because we've been designing a content which isn't about how to use Bitcoin and what problem does Bitcoin solve. As the diploma does already quite well, we wanted to build up Bitcoin Juniors to be leading into the diploma and leading into Bitcoin. So in fact, a lot of the content isn't really talking about Bitcoin specifically. It's talking about the prerequisites to understanding Bitcoin. Things like, what's important to you in your life? What do you value? What's the difference between value and price? How do you spend your time? How do you spend your energy? What is private? What is public? Some of these big questions that as Bitcoiners, I think we should be asking ourselves more often, but I find it really important that we ask the kids these questions because they have some amazing answers. I've been piloting this project at different Bitcoin events, like in the Bitcoin for Families section or at meetups with younger audiences. And it's really inspiring what they have to say and the way that they think about these big questions, which to me kind of confirms that these are already Bitcoiners. We just don't know it yet. So the idea of Bitcoin for Juniors is to kind of introduce them to this way of thinking, help them see that they have a lot more control over their young lives than we grant them power for. They are sovereign individuals, they have sovereign spirits. And I just help sew together some key notions of what's important to them, you know, what they want to protect, what they want to work for, how they see their futures, what they have in their lives that's important, and how they can interact with other people in an economic sense as well, you know, through games, through play. We also look at things like, for example, what is proof of work? They don't need to know the ins and outs of the resolution of the Byzantine generals problem, but we have a look at what is fair. You know, how should behavior be incentivized? How can we participate? How can we arrive at consensus? These are things that don't only apply to juniors' lives for Bitcoin purposes, but in general, you know, in terms of interacting as a society. I don't know, I could talk like ad nauseum about this, but it's just been so exciting to pull together all of these great ideas. And I think Bitcoin for Juniors is going to make a really solid impact in Bitcoin education in general, because we're broadening our horizons now. We're not just looking at, okay, how many wallets can we put in hands? How many times do we need to explain that they captured your gold and that fiat is eroding your buying power? We're also looking at how do we engineer a mindset in civilization which will be a fertile ground for Bitcoin adoption and essentially granting more power. It's a real empowerment move, taking on Bitcoin for Juniors in ways that we were only thinking about a few years ago, but I'm really happy that My First Bitcoin is leading the way with this. I hope it's like a flagship for other junior Bitcoin educated resources. And yeah, I'm not sure if you have more precise questions because I get really excited about this thing, but I'm not sure what I'm saying right now. It's just been really cool to be part of this project. And I'm as excited as everybody else in the community is about its launch.
Yeah, I think Pablo, thank you for the summary. The idea that comes to my mind is the genius thing about that is if this program targets a very young audience, they will never have the struggle in their life to actually unlearn what you thought you knew about money, right? So it will be actually, and you said like establishing a sort of like mindset, how to enter the world. And I guess for the three of us, it's the other way around. We went into like earning money, working, building up a belief system about money, then trying, and this is the hard way, to forget and unlearn almost everything. So I think this is what's genius about like the Bitcoin for Juniors is like you talk to, let's say, humans, little humans, before they actually build up the false belief system. And I think this is absolutely genius.
Yeah, it's a really privileged role to be able to address ourselves to a younger audience, but something we have to do with a lot of care as well. I think it's a big responsibility, but also hopefully when people read through Bitcoin for Juniors, they'll see it's been very much removed of any type of doctrine. There's very little talk of Bitcoin itself. I think it's only we cover the history of Satoshi via story time and like the mystery of his disappearance. And it's just very like an enigma. But we don't really preach to children about anything. There's a lot of discovery as part of, and it's discovery through play, discovery through creation. There's crafts in there. There's guided conversations where they have the answers and we ask the questions. It's very much like a holistic kind of experience-based curriculum rather than a didactic kind of this is the information. We transmit information to the students. So yeah, it's been great. We don't want to teach people what to think. We want to teach people how to think. That's true in the diploma, but it's especially true in Bitcoin for Juniors. We want to give them vision and hope and curiosity that will eventually lead them naturally to Bitcoin.
One last question that comes to my mind is, if it's Bitcoin for Juniors, like what is the format the content is actually delivered in? Is it like videos or is it a PDF? So if parents, for example, are interested or partners of our network want to integrate it into their teachings, is it a video and I just place a kid in front of a screen and let them watch videos, or is it interactive? Can you share a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. That's a really good question. Sorry, they're making a smoothie here. There we go. So in terms of resources, that's a good question. What does it look like? Now, there's not so much of a student book or a workbook or an exercise because the audience is very young. I don't really need them we don't need them to be completing things with an evaluation or an assessment. There's no diploma aspect to this. It's essentially a PDF guide for teachers, educators, parents, homeschoolers, whoever wants to pick this thing up. And that's the instruction blow by blow. How long does it last? How do you organize the students to be able to guide them through the activities? So it's a set of activities with a guide. And then I've also developed a lot of visual aids and cutouts and handouts and worksheets that you would feed the activity with. You would distribute reproductibles, things that can be easily photocopied. You don't need a lot of, it's very low tech as well. If you have a projector or a TV screen, great. But you don't need a cell phone, you don't need a computer. You need some everyday objects. You need some scissors, some colors, some crayons, some good stories, and this Bitcoin for Juniors guide. And then with the few little resources I've handed out, kids can draw, kids can write, kids can collaborate, kids can there's some collaborative art projects. There's like a craft project where they can encrypt for the first time using encryption wheels. So yeah, it's basically like it's supposed to be as fun as possible. And so hopefully the resources, you hand those out, the kids eat them up, and you can have fun in that context as well by guiding them through some of this stuff. So download the PDF, check it out. Download the resources, which are also PDFs and printable. And also don't be afraid to make this your own as well. It's version 1, and I look forward to being able to modify this. As you'll know, we're open source about everything. If you want to contribute back in, please do. If you have different ways of doing things, let me know. It's by no means the one and done way to do Bitcoin for Juniors. I just want to get this into the community and see how the people listening to this adapt it in their own way. And hopefully we can learn together about how to educate our youth.
Awesome. Last question, how to get it, where to get it?
It's going to be launched on our website. So it'll be, you'll go to myfirstbitcoin.org, you'll click on learn, and it'll be the programs right there next to the intro, next to the teacher's guide, next to the diploma. It's going to be right on our website. So that's probably the best place to get it.
Awesome. And then one question also maybe to Gabe, because we have like roughly a minute left, but let me ask one question, or also Pablo, you shared some information about that to have a better understanding about what is actually happening in the infrastructure, right? For people, it might sound very abstract if we talk about infrastructure. So I share it in my words, maybe a little bit, and you had some good ways of explaining how actually a workflow, right? How we actually bring like translations to life, how much less complex it becomes due to our new infrastructure. And I'm pointing that out because we have some partners who might watch the video or download the new versions of the diploma, and they might see that, let's say, the old diploma was visually more enhanced, right? And they might not understand what it actually means. So in my words, I would translate it like this. Right now, because we're going global, we're trying to scale, and many countries in many languages, the technical setup that we had wasn't able to handle that. So actually what we're doing is we're building the entire technology to distribute and to translate without hiring a bunch of people, but trying to use AI to make it scalable with a small team on a global level. But this also means that we're facing some technology limitations at the moment. we're trying to figure out in the next month. But as far as I'm aware, this is the only way how we can be available. The programs right now are available in 10 languages after the update, and this explains it very well where it's heading. In June, it will be already available in 40 languages. So this is the examples like how we actually scale. And maybe you can add like just, Pablo, I guess you talked about it yesterday, about how the workflow was before and how it is now, how it's actually simplified and how we can scale with that.
Yeah, sure. So I got to give a big shout out to Benoit, who's our tech guy here at My First Bitcoin. So he's really hit the ground running with this kind of internationally in terms of the organization, but also in terms of technology and where we need to go to deliver the quality materials. So Benoit's been working super hard. But for anybody listening to this wondering like concretely, what does it look like? Previous to this rehaul, a lot of the diploma was held on Google Doc as Word text docs, and then it was designed using graphic designers to be placed onto a PDF. So it was an extremely heavy lift, any type of update. It was an extremely heavy translation, but we still need proofreaders. We still need people to contribute in. But now our base document is essentially a .md file, which is a markdown file. This is a standardized format of a file for anything that involves machine learning. So once we've been able to condense everything down into a MD file, we can feed this into multiple different AIs. So it depends what we're using, but we can later use that to generate things like graphics. You can synthesize it down into slides. It's not just the diploma. We're pivoting the back end so that we can produce the diplomas first and the programs first. But after this, we unlock so many more different resources in terms of we could do an automatic podcast. We could do content for TikTok. We could do slides in different languages. So we've had to pivot into this new format, but it is the native format of AI. So every different type of LLM will be able to take this information on board and use the information that we've already crafted very hard into the diploma and the education guide and the introduction to be able to generate next stuff. So what's happened for us is major. It might seem for the audience that it's minor, but what's to come will be the real fruit of our hard work right now. For the next few months, we look forward to just being able to blow minds, basically, based on this change.
And I would add one thing, what's really interesting. So to make it accessible, on a global scale. One thing is languages, right? For sure. So this was a challenge back in the days. It won't be a challenge in the future. But what it also means is we can target very specifically one audience, right? So we could, just from the top of my head, we can write something like Bitcoin for women, Bitcoin for plumbers. So you actually could use analogies, right, together with AI to actually build the bridge from the non-Bitcoin world into generating like the first understanding. So probably or maybe by the end of the year, we could actually have very, very much like 60 different versions, for example, of the introduction course, because now we invested, let's put it that way, into infrastructure. We focused on infrastructure, which will show its full capacity, I would say, by mid of this year. We're not allowed to talk about that for now, but I'm very happy to share that. We will talk about it in Prague and at our event right before BTC Prague. So we're rolling actually out like an entire platform, and we will show more about that. And this is actually, I would say, the backbone of the platform is what we're doing now. So make it accessible in languages, but also like very different approaches how to find your way into Bitcoin. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, for sure. I think what's helped us get here as well is like an honest look at what the diploma was and its genesis, essentially. Like it totally makes sense where the diploma came from the adoption in El Salvador and from the boots on the ground education that was required to help adoption, which was a top-down adoption, but grassroots education was a need. But also the reality of that situation has kind of been baked into the DNA of the diploma. So we've had to look at how the diploma was created to be able to make it scale much more. So things like, for example, the base fiat currency of the diploma is the US dollar. It happens to be the world's currency. But for mainly people in Europe, it's the euro. For people in other parts of the world, they have different fiat currencies to relate to. So how relatable is the diploma? Also in terms of historical events and contexts, there are different events that are mentioned historically in the diploma that might not strike a chord with readers of the diploma when it's been translated into Italian or Mandarin or French. We will be able to pivot not only the language, but the approach from a cultural, personalized, and local point of view. It's something we cover in the ETP. A good educator is able to adapt to their audiences. Right about now, we've been really shipping that downstream to the educators and letting them carry that huge gesture of being able to personalize the diploma. But we want to provide a way that they can have personalized content, personalized materials, so that when they're teaching in a class, they have more authority, they have more relatability, and most importantly, they have more impact. So yeah, we're not just translating languages, we have to translate the channels of learning, essentially.
Awesome. I think this is a great summary. Gabe, do you want to add anything to like the update in general and like thoughts about infrastructure?
No, I mean, I think in the past, I've known about My First Bitcoin before joining the team officially for a while. So I had an idea, I had a look at what the diploma was before this update. And yes, it's visually different. But what that means is that we're able to reach so many more people with the click of a button, right? And I would describe that as, sometimes people have situations in which they take 2 steps forward and 1 step back and they don't actually move forward. But for us, it's actually like we're taking 4 steps forward and maybe 1 step back. And that 1 step back is just that we lose some visuals, but that we as the team understand that, and we're quickly working to bring more visually appealing content to you. Now, when you take out the visuals and you just leave the content, now you have educators in whatever one of those 40 languages that are empowered with the content that they can give out to their students. They didn't have that before. Or in order to get that before, they would have had to translate into their own language themselves, which was a workflow that Pablo was mentioning before. Like, it was way too much work for one person or a group of people. So now we feel really, really good about this update. And again, stay tuned, because if we do these on a regular basis, you guys are really going to see what we're doing behind the scenes. And these updates are just going to keep getting bigger. And I'm really bullish on Bitcoin education overall, but specifically the My First Bitcoin team. We have a lot of capabilities and a lot of potential. So yeah.
I think this is a good summary of what happened in the past month to share with people from our network, but also for people who might be interested in joining and are not very sure, like what's the benefit. I think also there was a lot of information in there, and it showcases in a very interesting way, like on how many levels My First Bitcoin is actually operating. So that would be my last words. And I would just say thank you to giving the time to me and let me learn about the updates and share it with the world.
Yeah, thanks, Patrick. Thanks, Gabe.
Yeah, thanks, Patrick. Thanks for the space. I think people don't see what's going on underneath, but it's really, really good to get this out into the world and bring this to you guys. So thanks for the space, Patrick.